السلام علیکم ناظرین، آپ دیکھ رہے ہیں رائٹس واچ. میرا نام ہے زری جلیل
اور میں ہوں احمد سعید.
ناظرین، آج ہم نے ایک ایسی شخصیت کو بلایا ہے جس کا انٹروڈکشن ان کے کام سے ہی آپ خود ہی جانیں گے، لیکن تھوڑا سا آپ کو بتا دوں. انہوں نے آرٹ سے شروع کیا ایز این آرٹسٹ، اور پھر آرٹ سے موو آن کر کے وہ سوشیو پولیٹیکل ایشوز کو اٹھانا شروع ہو گئے. بیک گراؤنڈ ان کا ایک بڑا ہائی پروفائل پولیٹیکل بیک گراؤنڈ ہے، اینڈ بٹ ایز کیمپینر فار وٹ ہی اسٹینڈنگ فار دا کازز، جو وہ ایشوز ریز کرتے ہیں، جس چیز کے بارے میں بات کرنا چاہتے ہیں، اس کے اوپر وہ بالکل کسی بھی طریقے کا اپنا بیک گراؤنڈ کا یوز نہیں کرتے، یا کرنا انہوں نے اناؤنس کیا ہوا بلکہ کہ کرنا نہیں چاہتے. سو بٹ آپ ان کی باتیں سنیں گے، آپ ان کے کام کا تعارف دیکھیں گے. لیکن آج جو ہم نے ان کو بلایا ہے اسپیسیفکلی ان کے کام HIV کی جو کیمپیننگ وہ کر رہے ہیں اس حوالے سے ہم تھوڑا سا ڈسکشن کریں گے. ہم نے دعوت دی ہے ذوالفقار بھٹو جونیئر کو، اور وہ ہمیں بتائیں گے کہ ان کی HIV کیمپین کیسی چل رہی ہے سندھ کے اندر، اور کیا ان کو چیلنجز فیس ہو رہی ہیں، اور کن آئیڈیاز کو ان کو فیس کرنا پڑا ہے. So thank you for joining us, Zulfikar. Welcome to the show, and we're very glad that you could join us in this show. ہم آپ سے شروع کریں گے HIV کے بارے میں بات کرنا، کیونکہ ابھی ریسنٹلی کراچی میں بہت سارے کیسز آئے تھے بچوں کے. اب بچوں کو بھی ڈائگنوز ہونا شروع ہو گیا HIV، جیسے کہ آپ کو پتہ ہے. اٹس اے ویری ٹریجک سچویشن اکراس پاکستان کی یہ بھی اب خبریں سننے کو مل رہی ہیں. اور یہ ہاسپٹلس کے اندر ہو رہا ہے، ناٹ ایون بیک ایلی آپریشنس. تو یہ بڑی ایک سیریس ایک سچویشن ہے، اور آپ نے اس کے اوپر کافی زیادہ بات کی ہے ریسنٹلی، اور آپ کافی موضوعات پہ کرتے رہے ہیں. لیکن HIV از سم تھنگ جو آپ نے اب ریسنٹلی شروع کی ہے اس کے اوپر کیمپیننگ کرنا. تو کین یو ٹیل می اے لٹل بٹ اباؤٹ یور کیمپین اینڈ واٹ یو ہیو فاؤنڈ آؤٹ تھرو یور ریسرچ، تھرو یور ورک؟
جی جی بالکل. سو ایکچولی کافی ٹائم سے میرا انٹرسٹ رہا ہے HIV پاکستان میں. اینڈ یہ اس لیے ہے کیونکہ ہمارے اپنے رتو ڈیروں میں یہ واقعہ ہوا تھا 2019 میں کہ تقریباً 1,000 بچے HIV سے متاثر ہوئے تھے، اور کچھ نہ صرف بچے بلکہ اڈلٹس بھی. اور یہ پاکستان کا سب سے بڑا آؤٹ بریک، مگر ایکچولی اگر آپ اس کو غور سے دیکھیں یہ آؤٹ بریک نہیں تھا. آؤٹ بریک کا یہ مطلب ہے کہ ایک دم کسی وجہ سے لوگ HIV سے پازیٹیو ہو رہے ہیں. لائک لوگ HIV سے they're sero converting, they're becoming HIV positive for one reason or another. مگر یہ تھا کہ یہ ایکچولی اولڈ کیسز اینڈ نیو کیسز جو کہ سب ساتھ نکل آ رہے تھے due to the availability of rapid tests, due to the availability of easy testing facilities. So, I got interested in that at that time because Ratodero is in Larkana district. Larkana district is my home district. I feel an obligation towards it. I feel a responsibility towards it. If not, I'm not in a position of government, but I am in a position of influence. And so to raise my voice, تو میں ہر سال ویڈیوز لگاتا تھا HIV اور ایڈز کے بارے میں کہ کیسے پھیلتا ہے، کیسے آپ اپنے آپ کو محفوظ رکھ سکتے ہیں، کیا غلط فہمیاں ہوتے ہیں. And the غلط فہمیاں is actually one of the most important things. We can talk about that later. And so جب 2026 میں یہ واقعہ ہوا تھا تونسا actually 2025 میں ہوا تھا، مگر 2026 میں یہ BBC رپورٹ was released. So ایک دوست میرا اس نے کہا کہ پلیز آپ اس کے بارے میں بات کریں، کیونکہ میرے کافی خاندان والے HIV سے متاثر ہوئے ہیں، HIV سے انتقال بھی ہوئے ہیں سرائکی وسیب میں، اور یہ ایک کاز ہے جو کہ close to my heart ہے. And I said, I won't just make a video, let's do a campaign. Because now there are going to be so many children who are going to be living with this disease, most likely for the rest of their lives, unless a cure is found. And even though we are close to a cure, as you know, the pharmaceutical industries in the world do not like cures for diseases. They like to keep diseases going. So it is very likely that these children will live with this disease for if not the rest of their lives, a significant portion of their lives. And we need to make Pakistan better for them. We need to make a Pakistan that is kind to these children, that is not scared of these children, that does not stigmatize them. So So we started this campaign by going I थोड़ा मैंने जल्दबाजी की अगर मैं हकीकत बताऊं I went straight on the road and I just thought चलो हमें एक आगाही मुहिम शुरू करना चाहिए through media through awareness camps. So we would do awareness camps. We've done maybe 8 or 9.
That's actually quite good because जल्दबाजी तो आप कह रहे हैं लेकिन this is like more I think इस चीज़ का ज़्यादा इफेक्ट होता है लोगों पे कि आपने फौरन एक चीज़ को रिएक्ट
Zurur, Zurur, you take advantage of the moment. And we were in Dando Alaya, Dando Jam, Hyderabad, Larkana, Ratodero, Dadu, Jamshoro, and saw a lot of things during this campaign which have made me very upset and very sad, both in children and in adults. And I can speak more about that, but that's basically how we started the campaign.
अच्छा ओके आप ज़रूर प्लीज़ बताइएगा हमें कि what was it that affected you so deeply and you said that it upset you.
So, when we started the campaign, even हमारे कैंप से पहले, क्योंकि मैंने ऑडी वीडियोस लगा दी सोशल मीडिया पे, एक दोस्त मेरा जो कि हैदराबाद में बेस्ड है, थोड़ा सियासी कॉमरेड भी है, और उसने मुझे बताया कि साईं मेरा बहुत करीब दोस्त है, जाम यूनिवर्सिटी से ग्रेजुएट है, और वो कंडियारों में दाखिल हुआ है, उसका HIV है। तो उसने मुझे इसका तस्वीर भेजा, and he sent me a picture not of a man but of a skeleton. And he showed me his reports. He had a lot of issues. And so I knew that he most likely had full-blown AIDS. And I can explain the stages of HIV also later. And so I decided, I have to go. So I went in the night. We reached Kandiara. We reached GIMS Hospital, which is one of the best, quote unquote, best hospitals in Sindh. And it's a huge facility, and they weren't able to test his viral load. So what a viral load is that it measures the quantity of the virus in your system. Why is that important? Because it can decide essentially whether you're going to live or die, at what stage of the virus you're at, so that they can prescribe you medicine. So if, let's say, you are HIV positive, um, and you find out within a year or within a few weeks or within a few months or within a few years, they'll just prescribe you like the normal 1 pill a day antiretroviral, which will basically bring you to a healthy, stable condition, and you will become undetectable and you won't be able to spread the virus further. Now, the undetectable is your viral load, right? So what the medicine does is that it doesn't cure you, but it brings your viral load down to zero,
So you're
which means that,
regulated.
sorry?
It's regulated.
It's regulated, exactly. But of course, if you're, let's say, 10 years in and the virus has multiplied, in the hundreds of thousands of copies in your system, then your immunity becomes severely compromised, and even very, very minor things that would not kill you or me that are available in the atmosphere at any given point will kill you, and will spread all over your body. And not only one thing, but two, three, four. So when we went there, he had a collapsed lung, he had tuberculosis, his lungs were filled with blood, which means he had a very particular kind of pneumonia, which affects people with AIDS. And he also had hepatitis B and C. At the same time, and likely he was also having neurological issues, and he had oral thrush, which normally doesn't affect people with stable immunities. It's basically essentially a white film that it's a fungus that develops around your mouth, on your tongue. And it was awful, and they didn't know how to deal with him. They were like, we're going to transfer him to Sakkar, we're going to transfer him to here, we're going to transfer him to there. And I was like, why haven't you done a viral load? They were shocked that I even knew what any of this was. They were trying to tell me like, oh no, we've got this under control. But it was clear that they were wildly unequipped to deal with this situation. And fine, they were a cancer hospital, and maybe they didn't have an ART center, they didn't have an antiretroviral center. But how difficult is it for a hospital that is registered to call another hospital that is registered to get the medicine for one patient, or to get a doctor in for one patient? They didn't care about him because he had a history of drug abuse. He had a history of potentially, God knows, maybe they thought he was a homosexual, maybe they thought he had engaged in, there were all these stigmas that they had
Yeah,
attached to him that made them not care about him. And his own family had disowned him. His family wasn't there. It was just
that's
one
awful.
friend who found him on the street. And he had all the signs of AIDS, and he, for several years he had hopped from hospital to hospital. No one tested him once until the
That's
very end.
really actually.
जुल्फ़िकार साहब, ये जो बात आप कर रहे हैं, ये हमने बहुत ज़्यादा जब भी हम एड्स के हवाले से बात करते हैं तो एक तो ये शिकायत आती है कि पाकिस्तान में जो प्रॉपर टेस्टिंग फैसिलिटीज़ नहीं, जिसके हवाले से आपने बात की। दूसरी फिर ये आती है कि उनको स्टिग्मेटाइज कर दिया जाता है। तो गवर्नमेंट तो चले एक पार्ट है, बट द पॉइंट इज़ कि सोसाइटी को कितना अवेयर करने की ज़रूरत है इस हवाले से। आप कह रहे थे कि कुछ बहुत सारी मिसकंसेप्शंस भी हैं, अगर आप थोड़ा सा उस हवाले से बात कर सकें।
बिल्कुल हर सोसाइटी HIV के बारे में अवेयर होना चाहिए। और हर सोसाइटी इसके बारे में खुल के बात करना चाहिए। हमें शर्म नहीं आनी चाहिए जब हम HIV के बारे में बात कर रहे होते हैं। और मैं हमेशा अपने कैंप्स में ये हमेशा कहता हूँ कि HIV खास करके गैर महफूज जिनसी ताल्लुकात से फैलता है। सबसे पहले ये है, फिर बाकी चीज़ें आते हैं। माँ से बच्चे पेट पेट के अंदर, through vaginal fluids, semen, through used needles। मगर जो सबसे अहम बात यह है कि पहले हमें गलत फहमियाँ के बारे में बात करना चाहिए। तो एक तो ये है कि कुछ लोग ये भी सोचते हैं कि HIV मच्छरों से फैलता है, लाइक डेंगू और मलेरिया। मगर ये एक ये नहीं है, ये हकीकत नहीं है, नहीं हो सकते। इट्स ह्यूमन इम्यूनोडिफिशियंसी वायरस, दैट्स व्हाट HIV मींस। सो इट्स फ्रॉम ह्यूमन टू ह्यूमन कांटेक्ट। ऑल्सो ये एक खूनी बीमारी है, ना थूक से फैलता है, ना हाथ लगाने से फैलता है, ना गला लगाने से फैलता है, ना इवन खाने शेयर करने से फैलता है। या अगर दो बच्चे, मिसाल के तौर पर अगर एक बच्चा घर में पॉजिटिव है और एक बच्चा नेगेटिव है, तो दोनों मिसाल मिसाल के तौर पे साथ नहा भी सकते हैं, साथ सो भी सकते हैं। So these are very, and when we talk, and it's very sad in Pakistan, we have to talk about children. We have to focus on children. And I'll talk about that also in a little bit why. But and also it's a disease of the blood. It's not open cuts in the air cannot spread it. If let's say I'm HIV positive, I get cut, the blood lands on the table, you put your hand on it, you're not going to get HIV. That blood, that bodily fluid has to find a way to get directly inside you. So that's why it's needles, and the virus can survive in syringes because there's a vacuum. It can survive for much longer in syringes because there's no atmosphere killing it. There's no atmospheric conditions killing it, but it's much less likely for the virus, for example, to be transferred through a salon on someone's blade. For example, hepatitis can be transferred that way, but on a blade, for example, because it's being exposed to so many other elements, it's very unlikely that the virus will survive. तो पाकिस्तान में इसकी बहुत ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि अभी HIV, in the world of HIV, we say that there are high risk populations and then there are low risk populations. ये जो बात है, हमें 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 इसको फेंकना चाहिए क्योंकि हाई रिस्क पॉपुलेशन का ये मतलब है ड्रग यूजर्स, या MSM population, या ट्रांसजेंडर population, और intravenous drug users specifically, या मेल सेक्स वर्कर्स, या फीमेल सेक्स वर्कर्स। असल में बेसिकली हमारे सोसाइटी के सबसे लोअर तबके के लोग। और and there's a good book I read about HIV, the origins of HIV, and the author Edward Hooper, he said जब US में HIV फैल रहा था, तो डॉक्टर्स ने कहा कि हाई रिस्क ग्रुप्स पहले homosexuals थे, फिर उन्होंने कहा कि हीमोफीलियाक्स हैं, क्योंकि हीमोफीलियाक्स ब्लड ट्रांसफ्यूजन्स रिसीव करते हैं, इन्फेक्टेड ब्लड ट्रांसफ्यूजन्स रिसीव करते हैं। फिर उसके बाद हेटेरोसेक्सुअल हेशियंस इमिग्रेंट्स स्टार्टेड हैविंग एचआईवी, and then also they said then eventually heroin addicts। फिर उसने कहा कि असल में actually the high risk population is not any of these four groups, it is Homo sapiens। It is not homosexuals, it is not Haitians, it is not heroin addicts, it is not, these groups, it is Homo sapiens. So all of us are at risk. And the reason why in Pakistan we're especially at risk is because we have a very, very weak medical system. And our medical system, the hospital, has become the vector of disease. It has become a place in which HIV, people who know they're HIV positive and not taking medication come, people who are unaware that they're HIV positive, and they're also coming in, as well as HIV negative adults, women, men, children, everyone's coming in. And even in the Tonsa documentary, you saw कि क्या मैं 10 रुपए का टीका लगा दूं या 100 रुपए का टीका लगा दूं? Do I do the tika that's been going around the hospital, or do I do the tika that's new? And of course, मजबूरी से लोग कहते कि ठीक है 10 रुपए लगा दो। And this is a public hospital. Why is the tika also not being provided for free? So when you have a weak health system, viruses spread in the population, and um, we are getting outbreaks happening every few months in Pakistan now. 17 here, 20 here, 30 here, 40 here, 300 here, 100 here. Like you said, in Karachi and Velika Hospital, 120 at least. And that number is increasing, and it's particularly targeting one neighborhood, which is Metroville, also known as Pathan Colony. And the amount of people who even off record have told me, like, yeah, my niece is HIV positive. What do I do? My this is HIV. Practically every second child in that neighborhood is HIV positive.
सो क्या ये फिर एक्सपोनेंशियली ग्रो कर जाता है? मतलब अगर ये स्प्रेड हो जाए तो फिर हम क्या ये समझेंगे ये फिर फैलता ही जाता है?
ये फैलता ही जाते, बेशक फैलता ही जाते। अगर, I mean, for example, these kids, right? They're children. So let's take the children first. Children high risk activities में engage नहीं करते हैं, और high
Yes.
risk activities means sex mostly, or drug sharing through needles, right? They're not doing this. So, but their risk is that they will die, because we also have to establish the difference between HIV and AIDS. HIV is human immunodeficiency virus. It is the first stage. And then it progresses eventually into AIDS. Like I said, your viral load increases, it peaks until your immunity is incredibly compromised. Your T4 cells, your white blood cells, reduce because the HIV virus essentially invades your white blood cells, multiplies within them, breaks out of them, and kills them. And that's how the virus spreads, and that's how it also kills your white blood cells. It's a very disturbing type of virus that just goes into your very DNA. It reverses your DNA. That's why it's called a retrovirus. And so these children, they already have low immunities. Children already have compromised immunities. That's why children get sick so much, and that's why children end up in the hospital so much, and that's why children are most disproportionately affected by this. It shouldn't be, but we shouldn't think it's just children being affected by needle-based infections. It's also adults, but children are going to hospitals more than adults. So with these children, what happens is that with an adult with a good immunity, let's say you're exercising, let's say your nutrition is good, let's say your lifestyle is overall very healthy, you live in a good neighborhood, you will likely, your transition from HIV to AIDS could take about 10 or 12 years. If, let's say, you're poor, you have bad nutrition, you're unable to maintain good health because of your circumstances, your immunity is very compromised, HIV will run through your system in 5 or 6 years and kill you. With children, it's even worse. It runs through their system within 2 years and kills them. 12% of the children from Ratodero died within the first 5 months. In 2019, many died afterwards. I have met the remaining few that are alive, and a lot of them, some are 18 or 16, and they look like they're 13 years old, because it ravaged their system while they were young, and even though they're stable, they're unable to live these lives. And not, sorry to answer your question, within the adult population, if HIV is unaddressed, yes, of course they'll spread it. So even if you're getting a transfusion, or if you get HIV positive, which happens a lot in Pakistan, this is also another thing that we don't talk about enough. Blood transfusions are a huge factor that contribute to HIV and AIDS in Pakistan. And people love blood transfusions in Pakistan because they think like आपको like हिम्मत देगा, आपको ताकत देगा, इस तरह की चीजें. So in the adult population, of course, if they get HIV, even if they're faithful husbands or faithful wives, if they sleep with their husbands or wives, they will give it to their husbands and wives. They'll give it to their children. And so yes, this will exponentially increase. And in my research, I've seen that HIV has been unchecked in Pakistan for a very long time. We don't want to admit that it exists. 2019 was not the first time that injection malpractice spread HIV in Pakistan. 2008 was one of the first outbreaks of HIV in Pakistan that occurred due to medical malpractice in Faisalabad, and it affected men and it affected children. And we didn't want to really address it. We didn't want to talk about it. We didn't want to do anything about it. In fact, the National AIDS Control Program at the time when this outbreak was discovered was in denial about it. So we can't keep being in denial about HIV and AIDS.
What do you say? What do you say is the role of the National AIDS Program now at present? Do you think that they're trying to do their best? Do you think that they have a lot of challenges? क्या आपके ख्याल से क्या लगता है आपको?
I think the National AIDS Control Program is impotent. It's ये नाकाम है. And the reason why it's been weakened greatly. So already जो NACP था, पहले government ने इसको बनाया था. अगर आप इसका तारीख देखें, so 1986 was when the first committee was established, which led to the creation in 1987 of the National AIDS Control Program. और ये काफी एक robust program रहा था. एक government की वजह से, फिर उसके बाद WHO आया, फिर UNDP आया, फिर ये सारे लोग आए थे. But then they didn't want the government to really have control over it, right? So then you had all these private organizations that were being given funds by the UN and by WHO and all of these things. And then in 2010 we had the devolution of power. So health got devolved to the provinces, and the provinces were unequipped to deal with HIV and AIDS. And the NACP, even though it still existed, due to allegations of corruption, due to allegations of mismanagement of funds, they are now highly scrutinized, unfairly in a way, and maybe a little bit fairly, scrutinized by the UNDP and by the WHO. Funds are constantly withheld. Pakistan is constantly at a shortage of medicine. We don't produce our own antiretroviral therapy in Pakistan. Antiretroviral therapy is being made in India primarily. And then it gets redistributed to poor countries, including African countries, via the Global Fund. And then Pakistanis of all demographics receive antiretroviral treatment for free. So in a way, Pakistan's actually ahead of the United States in some ways, because in the United States you need insurance to get HIV and AIDS medication from Gilead, which is the only pharmaceutical company that gives HIV and AIDS medication. In Pakistan, you don't need insurance, and sometimes you don't even need a Shanakhti card to register. You can register on someone else's Shanakhti card and still get the medicine. But the only thing is that there's not enough testing, and there's not enough willpower, and there's not enough follow-up with patients to make sure that they are consistently taking their medicine. There is a lot of money in HIV and AIDS in Pakistan, but it is not efficiently utilized.
And also there's a lot of social fear कि पेशेंट पहली दफ़ा मतलब वो ब्रिज नहीं हो रहा, वो सोशल फियर का गैप. और साथ में जो HIV की आप बोल रहे मेडिसिन अवेलेबल तो है, मगर लोग एक्सेस ही नहीं करेंगे आउट ऑफ फियर, तो फिर क्या फ़ायदा?
So people I've met also who are HIV positive, they've, flat out, who were dying, have flat out been like, I didn't want to take the medicine. I didn't want anyone to know I was taking it. There are cases of people who are taking the medicine, then they get married. They don't want their wives or their in-laws to know that they're taking the medicine, so they stop taking the medicine. I have met two cases, the family of two deceased HIV/AIDS patients in Larkana. The grandmother also had HIV, and she had a grandson. Her husband died of it, and her son died of it. And they both died of it because they took the medicine for 3 years and then they just decided, bus, enough. And I don't need to take it anymore. And so this is a big reason why the HIV
सो
AIDS.
सो बेसिकली मैं थोड़ा सा ये जानना चाह रहा हूँ, क्योंकि HIV के हवाले से आज से 10-15 साल पहले तो ये समझा रहा था कि इट्स लाइक अ डेथ सेंटेंस, कि अगर किसी को HIV हो गया है, वो पॉजिटिव हो गया, तो मतलब वो ज़िंदगी के दिन गिनता था और कि उसने मर जाना है। बट क्या मुझे अभी भी कहीं आपकी बातों से लगा कि अभी भी अगर जो है शायद रेशो कम होगी हो, बट अभी भी अगर उसको प्रॉपरली ट्रीट ना किया जाए, और क्योंकि पाकिस्तान में आपने कहा कि मेडिसिन की फैसिलिटी तो है, बट जिस तरह रैपिड टेस्टिंग नहीं है, तो अगर किसी के पास है और वो उसको नहीं क्योर करने की कोशिश कर रहा, तो इट इज़ अ डेथ सेंटेंस। या इवन कि अगर क्योर भी कर रहा है तो फिर भी चांसेस हैं।
तो ये जो लफ्ज क्योर है, क्योर नहीं हो सकते, राइट? तो
ट्रीट।
थोड़ा हमें ट्रीट, एग्जैक्टली,
ठीक है।
मैनेज। सो यू कैन ओनली एवर मैनेज
ठीक है।
HIV। सो अगर कोई इलाज नहीं ले रहा होता है और कभी भी नहीं लेगा, तो फिर ये होगा एक डेथ सेंटेंस, राइट? जैसे कि मैंने कहा कि HIV के जो वायरल भोज है आपके जिस्म के अंदर, वो फिर वक्त के साथ आहिस्ता आहिस्ता बढ़ता जाएगा। और जैसे कि ये बढ़ता जाता है तो फिर आपके वाइट सेल्स पर हमला करता है, वाइट सेल्स को डिस्ट्रॉय करता है, और जो आपको वाइट ब्लड सेल्स है वो आपके जिस्म के फौज होते हैं, राइट? तो अगर आपके वाइट ब्लड सेल्स आपकी बॉडी में मौजूद नहीं होते हैं, और कुछ लोगों का ये भी होता है कि जब एड्स तक पहुंच जाते हैं उनका एक भी वाइट ब्लड सेल नहीं रह जाता है, which is crazy. And it's just all replaced by HIV cells. तो एड्स हम इसलिए एड्स तब होता है जब आपका इम्यूनिटी बिल्कुल ही कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो जाता है, फिर हम HIV को एड्स कहलाते हैं। एंड और एंटी रेट्रोवायरल थेरेपी ये करते हैं कि HIV का जो जरासीम है, जो 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 वेरियम इसको कहते हैं, जरासीम है, इसको दबा देता है और इसको push कर देता है into the plasma of your body. So the viral load in someone who, let's say, has HIV could be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000. But to take the medicine, it will then reduce it to zero, the viral load to zero. And it will be as if you don't have HIV. You still have it. It's in the data of your body. It takes one HIV virus to then come back into the blood cell to then reproduce. It's a very efficient reproducer in your body. It's a very smart virus. And for a lot of people, even if they have HIV and they're not taking medicine, for a good 10 years, they will never show symptoms. And so they will simply think that they're fine and they have nothing, and they will continue to pass the infection on. So it becomes highly infectious in someone who's unaware of their status. मगर हम ये कहते हैं कि जब जब इलाज ले रहे होते हैं तो आपका स्टेटस इन्फेक्शियस से अनडिटेक्टेबल तब्दील हो जाता है। इसका ये मतलब है कि आपका वायरल लोड जीरो है। अनडिटेक्टेबल इक्वल्स व्हाट? अनट्रांसमिसिबल, यानी आप किसी बीमारी किसी को मुंतकिल नहीं कर सकते हैं। And this is the then break in the bridge. This is why people need to be on medication in Pakistan, because then it will stop the spread of the virus. और जो बंदा या बंदी undetectable हो, अगर मैं खुल के बात कर सकता हूँ, जो बंदा या बंदी undetectable होता है, they are technically the safest person in the room to have sex with because they are undetectable. Their viral load has been suppressed to zero. They know their status. So let's say you have two people in a room. One person knows they're undetectable. The other person has no idea. It doesn't matter if they're Amir, ya Gharib, ya Mard, ya Aurat. The one who doesn't know their status, who has not been tested, they are not the safe person to engage in unprotected sex with. So now in Pakistan, what's also available for free is not only antiretroviral therapy, but also pre-exposure prophylactic PrEP. And if you are someone who is sexually promiscuous, if you are someone who engages in that activity and you're not sure and you know that you're not going to be wearing condoms or you know that the other person is not taking precautions, then you can take PrEP for free in Pakistan every day and you will not get HIV. Even if the other person has HIV, even if it does enter your system, the PrEP, the pre-exposure prophylactic, will kill that very first viral load entry.
सही
So we have methods in Pakistan of reducing, and I'm sorry I'm talking so openly.
No, no, this.
We really have to, because if we are bashful, then this disease will continue to spread.
जुल्फ़िकार साहब, ये जो आप बात कर रहे हैं कि आप बहुत ओपनली बात कर रहे हैं, मुझे मुझे ये लग रहा है कि शायद इस चीज़ की बहुत ज़्यादा कमी है, क्योंकि मेरा एक मुशाहिदा है कि हमने बहुत सारी ऐसी डिजीज़ थी जिनको मुझे लगता है कि पॉलिटिकल पैटर्नेज हासिल थी। टीबी कह लें, पोलियो कह लें, हेपेटाइटिस कह लें, इस पे हमारे हुकूमत के लोग, सियासतदान इस पे बात करते थे, वो आके पब्लिक सर्विसेज मैसेजेस देते थे और हमने देखा कि उसको कहीं ना कहीं हद तक हमने कंट्रोल किया। ये जो चीज़ है, ये जिस तरह से आपने आई ओपनिंग किस्म के स्टैट्स दिए हैं और जितना ये रैपिडली हमें नज़र आ रहा है कि फैल रही है, इसको पॉलिटिकल पैटर्नेज हासिल नहीं हो रही, तो मतलब ये कि वो हमारे जो हाईएस्ट एक्लेंस ऑफ पावर्स हैं उसमें भी ये भी एक टैबू टॉपिक है।
ये क्यों एक सियासी बात नहीं है, पाकिस्तान में 14,000 लोग सालाना HIV एड्स से अमवात हो रहे हैं। 14,000 लोग, यानी कि हर घंटा 2 पाकिस्तानी HIV एड्स से मर रहे हैं। और UN एड्स के मुताबिक तकरीबन कुछ 4 लाख लोग HIV से मुतासर हैं और उनमें से तकरीबन 70% उनको नहीं पता है कि उनका HIV है या नहीं। And only 60,000 people in Pakistan are actually taking HIV medication. जो मैंने देखा अपने आंखों से, जो मैंने फील्ड में देखे हैं अपने आंखों से, ये जो 4 लाख वाला फिगर है, ये नहीं हो सकता है। शायद हमारे फिगर 10 लाख के करीब हो सकते हैं, क्योंकि हमने HIV एड्स को काफ़ी साल से नज़रअंदाज किया। हमारे जो पॉलिटिकल रिएक्शन टू डिजीजेस, खास करके HIV एड्स, हमेशा रिएक्टिव होता है।
अच्छा, ये आपको डेटा कहाँ से मिला 14,000 का?
UNAIDS.
अच्छा,
Yes, yes, yeah, UNAIDS. So this is the established data. This is not just 2 days ago I heard about someone die of HIV and AIDS. Were they registered under UNAIDS? I don't know. Do we know the actual figures? I have I have seen one person die in front of me, the gentleman I described at the beginning. I have been to the condolence of one 21-year-old who died. I have been to the condolences of 2 babies who have died. I have been to the condolence. I'm going now to the condolence of another man who died in a neighborhood in Karachi, an adult. This is all within the last 2 months. So you can't tell me that this is not a political issue. Pakistanis are dying. बात सिंपल है, पाकिस्तानीज इस बीमारी से मर रहे हैं, जो कि बहुत ही मैनेजेबल है। Listen, if you tell me that I have a disease for the rest of my life, but I can control it and live a normal, healthy life, and gym and eat and do drugs and go out and party or not party or do namaz or do whatever, be religious, be not, live a normal life, and I just have to take one pill a day.
Yeah.
Compare that to diabetes, which 30% of Pakistani adults have.
Yes.
That is very difficult to manage. It requires a lifestyle change. It requires a fridge. You need a fridge to keep your insulin cool. You need all kinds of different pills. You need to manage in different ways. TB, hepatitis, all these things are very difficult to manage. And HIV and AIDS is very easy to manage. So why are people dying of a disease that's very easy to manage? And also HIV है एक STD, मगर hepatitis भी एक STD होता है. There are many diseases that can be transferred through other means. And HIV AIDS in Pakistan is now not an STD because of the fact that we are now the fastest growing HIV and AIDS rate in all of Asia. And we have superseded the Philippines recently. And the reason why we have the fastest growing is because of our medical system. because people are injecting people with HIV and AIDS in hospitals. And you're telling me this is not something we should tackle head on as a political issue? In Uganda and Tanzania, they had a very bad HIV AIDS epidemic. And they're both very religious countries. Uganda is a very Orthodox Christian country, and Tanzania is a very both Orthodox Christian and Muslim country. Their presidents talked about condom use. Their presidents talked about safe sex. They had this campaign called No Grazing, which means don't have multiple sexual partners. They called having multiple sexual partners grazing. So if they can put their virtues to the side, we must also, because there's one, our values. I'm also a religious person. I do namaz 5 times a day. I felt bashful initially talking about sex, but
It has to be done. It has to be done.
it has to be done. My values are not the same as the ground reality.
बिल्कुल 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 दैट डजंट मैटर एनी मोर बिकॉज अब लोगों की जान बचाने की बात आ गई है आपने पॉलिटिकल बात की जुल्फ़िकार तो आपने जब पॉलिटिकल इस चीज़ को उठाया और सियासत में आने का भी आपने सोचा है आई थिंक तो क्या उसका इम्पैक्ट हुआ फिर क्या रिएक्शन आया
क्या रिएक्शन है लोग इसको आई डोंट नो आवर पॉलिटिकल सपोर्टर्स शायद सिंध और पंजाब में यही फर्क होता है कि सिंध में लोग इन चीज़ों से इतना ज़्यादा शर्माते नहीं हैं मगर लोगों का बहुत अच्छा रिस्पांस हुआ है लोग इसको सियासी ले रहे हैं हमारे आगाही मुहिम में हमारा नारा ये होता है आवाज़ उठाना फ़र्ज है खामोशी जुर्म है कि द साइलेंस अराउंड HIV वी हैव टू ब्रेक इट
बट HIV के अलावा भी जो सियासत है आपकी ज़िंदगी के अंदर वो कैसी चल रही है
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह सही चल रही है um, we're we're going slow आई थिंक बहुत से लोग चाहते हैं कि मैं जल्दबाजी करके सियासत में आऊं मगर हमें I'm starting from the ground up. I'm not taking advantage of my father's resources or my mother's resources. I want to establish a party that can address the needs of Pakistan's youth specifically through socialism, but a socialism that we are morphing for our own needs as Pakistanis in a modern world. So to do that, we have to create a structure. We need a proper skeleton. We need a proper organizational structure before we can tackle the political establishment head on. And so this is what we're doing now, and it will take time. But we have a health committee I've established a new forum called ZAB Rabta. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Rabta Committee. We have within it a very robust, good health committee. We have within it a very good media committee. We have within it a growing district coordination committee, a growing women's committee, an arts committee. So these things will take time before we're at a place where we can say, okay, now let's have a convention.
जुल्फ़िकार साहब आपने बात की कि आप अपने फादर के रिसोर्सेज पे वो नहीं करना चाहते बल्कि एक अपना स्ट्रक्चर बनाना चाहते हैं बट अभी रिसेंटली बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी साहब ने एक बहुत ही शॉकिंग स्टेटमेंट दी जिसने पॉलिटिकल सर्कल्स को हिलाया उन्होंने कहा कि मैं बेनज़ीर भुट्टो का बेटा हूं आप चाहते हैं कि मैं उस तरह की सियासत करूं बट याद रखिएगा कि मैं शाहनवाज भुट्टो और मुर्तज़ा भुट्टो का भांजा भी हूं तो इसको बहुत डिफरेंटली जो है इंटरप्रेट किया जा रहा है सिंध के सर्कल्स के अंदर और पाकिस्तान की पॉलिटिक्स के हवाले से भी तो इस स्टेटमेंट को आप किस तरह से देखते हैं आप क्या रीड करते हैं इस स्टेटमेंट को देखकर
सबसे पहले मैं ये कहूँगा कि आई लव बिलावल वेरी मच एंड बिल्कुल उसकी बात सही है कि वो है भांजा शहीद मियां मुर्तज़ा भुट्टो का और शहीद शाहनवाज भुट्टो का ये हकीकत है और मैं भी उसको अपनाता हूँ एज माई कज़न एज माई ब्लड एज माई रिलेटिव हमारे सियासी इख्तलाफात हैं और रहेंगे मगर फिर भी हम एक ख़ानदान से हैं तो मेरी हमेशा ये कोशिश होती है कि एक दिन इंशाल्लाह हमारे आपस में एक ख़ानदानी तसल्ली हो जाए but obviously ये थोड़ा वेग स्टेटमेंट है कि will he do my father's politics will he do the politics of Shahid Shahnawaz Bhutto PPP disowned both of them The party disowned both of them. And has unfortunately, we love Shahid Mohtarma Benazir, but she did make compromises with the establishment in order to be in power. So one, perhaps he's trying to say that one is a politics of compromise and one is a politics without compromise. I'm not sure exactly what he was trying to say, but but my father fought a very brave struggle against Ziaul Haq.
Hmm.
My uncle, Shahid Shahnawaz Bhutto, fought a very brave struggle against Ziaul Haq. They the system brutally killed both of them. And then the system brutally also killed their sister, Bilawal's mother. And so I hope when he says that statement, he is honoring everyone's sacrifice. And he is honoring what everyone put into the struggle for the people of Pakistan and for the poor of Pakistan.
आपने कहा कि कभी पीपल्स पार्टी ने रिकग्नाइज़ नहीं किया मीर मुर्तज़ा भुट्टो शाहनवाज़ भुट्टो की सेक्रीफाइसेस को, बट अगर बिलावल भुट्टो की तरफ से ये बयान आता है तो डू यू कंसीडर इट कि वो एक ऑलिव ब्रांच एक्सटेंड कर रहे हैं टुवर्ड्स यू, क्योंकि आपने कहा कि आप चाहते हैं, आपकी ख्वाहिश है कि कहीं ना कहीं मामला सेटल हों आपके ख़ानदान के?
I don't know if it's an olive branch. I think an olive branch would be if he came over and we had some tea. So it's an olive branch when it's an olive branch, and I'm still waiting for that day.
अच्छा जुल्फ़िकार, आपने काफ़ी हमसे बातें की और ज़्यादातर तो टाइम HIV को डिस्कस करने में निकला, बट आपका इतना वास्ट और चीज़ों में भी आप यूर वोकल, फॉर एग्जांपल क्लाइमेट चेंज, एंड इट वाज वेरी रिलीविंग टू सी दैट समबडी स्पीकिंग अबाउट क्लाइमेट चेंज, समबडी हु हैज़ इन्फ्लुएंस एंड बिलोंग्स टू वेरी पॉलिटिकल बैकग्राउंड इज़ नाउ स्पीकिंग अबाउट हाउ इम्पोर्टेंट इट इज़ टू हैंडल नॉट जस्ट द इम्पैक्ट्स बट द सिम्टम्स एंड द कॉजेज ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज। तो आपका एक प्रोजेक्ट भी है डॉल्फिन्स का, भुल्लन बचाओ प्रोजेक्ट आई थिंक, उसके बारे में आप बताइए ज़रा हमें।
जी बिल्कुल, बुल्हन बचाओ मैंने सेटअप किया अगस्त 2023 में। और हमारा ये इनिशियली मकसद ये था कि वी वांट टू मेक श्योर दैट ऑल लिविंग बीइंग्स आर ग्रांटेड अ डिग्निफाइड लाइफ एंड रिस्पेक्ट। एंड हमने उसी भी शुरू किया जिस तरह हमने ये HIV मंसूबा शुरू किया। इनफैक्ट जो उसी का फॉर्मेट हमने बुलंद बचाव से उठा के हमारे हेल्थ प्रोग्राम में इस्तेमाल किया। और ये फॉर्मेट ये था कि हम मीडिया इस्तेमाल करें, सोशल मीडिया। उस वक्त हमने काफ़ी वीडियोस बनाए थे about facts about dolphins. And we also did awareness camps. So the Indus River dolphin is a very particular animal. It looks very particular. It acts very particularly. It's blind. It has basically no eyes. It has a very long rostrum, very big teeth. It's in fact it's a dinosaur. It's existed since before marine dolphins have, and it's a very special animal that we have in Pakistan. It has a very advanced sonar system, more advanced than most marine dolphins have. And one of the issues, one of its threats is the canal irrigation system in Pakistan. So Pakistan has a very extensive canal irrigation system, and especially from Sakhar Barrage, there's 7 giant canals that are taken from the river. And dolphins often get stuck in these canals, and in the winter the canal levels go down and the dolphins get stuck. And even though they're air-breathing animals, they're not fish, they're mammals. They breathe through their rostrum, through their blowhole, sorry. But they get exposed to the elements and there's 100% mortality. So the Sindh Wildlife Department goes and saves these dolphins, but another thing that causes their mortality is people's ignorance. So people have been known to kill dolphins in canals because they don't know what they are. They also think it's a fish. And sometimes when they do kill them and cut them open, they're shocked by how much blood comes out and how similar the anatomy is to human beings. This is something that happens. So our campaign was to educate people, because Sindh Wildlife Department and Punjab Wildlife Department would just arrest them. And usually these were poor fishermen. So we felt that this punitive form of punishment without knowledge was an injustice. It was an injustice to the dolphin, it was an injustice to the human being, it was injustice to the whole society. And all they would know is that like, okay, certain animals we can't kill. What are the animals we can't kill? And if they do kill a dolphin, they'll just do their best to hide it and not take a video, right? So this is why we started this, to grant people the dignity of knowledge. And that, okay, if you do kill it, you will go to jail and now you'll deserve it. Because now you know. And how we would do it is we would go and we would do these we would do agahi mohims along the canals. We've done two. And we would go, we went from we'd do like 5 or 6 villages at a time, and we would set up a traveling cinema which would show people the anatomy of the dolphin, what is the dolphin, why is it important. बुल्हन भी एक खुशहाली की अलामत है कि अगर आप बुल्हन दरिया में देख रहे होते हैं या नहर में देख रहे होते हैं, इसका ये मतलब है कि नहर में मछली भी है, नहर साफ भी है, पीने के काबिल है. And also we would introduce a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all living things are worth protecting. Alhamdulillah, our Islam has a very, very compassionate attitude towards wildlife. And so we try and emphasize that on people, that it is in fact a religious value, and not just from us. And then we would do interactive session with the kids. We would give them toys of the Indus River dolphin. I'm trying to see if I don't have one here, but we would give them toys that we got made of the dolphin, of turtles, of different wildlife. And we would also give food to everybody, and we would do at least one medical camp out of, let's say, every 5 villages. So it was a way to say that humans are actually at the center of wildlife conservation. And it's not that humans should be alienated from wildlife conservation. They should be very much believed to be that they have a stake in it.
Thank you so much, Zulfikar, for your time. It was a very nice, very good conversation. बहुत सारे topics और हम लोग explore कर सकते थे आपके साथ बैठ के, but we have to end now. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I hope I didn't digress too much.
No. You were totally on point and very detailed.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed being on this podcast.
It was our pleasure.
नाज़रीन, आप राइट्स वॉच को तकरीबन 2 साल से देखते आ रहे हैं और आपने देखा कि इस प्रोग्राम के ज़रिए हमने पाकिस्तान के तमाम मार्जिनलाइज सोसाइटीज़ की बात की, तमाम उन टॉपिक्स के हवाले से बात की जिनको पाकिस्तान के मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया में कवर नहीं किया जाता. हमने उन तमाम इश्यूज़ को उठाया जिनको उठाने को पाकिस्तान में ख़तरा तस्वुर किया जाता है. हम यकीन रखते हैं कि जो जर्नलिज़म है वो वॉइस ऑफ द वॉइसलेस है, उसमें करेज और बोल्डनेस जो है वो इंतहाई ज़रूरी होती है.
If you want to watch more of our bold journalism and our tough conversations that don't happen anywhere else, we need your support. Follow us on all our social media accounts on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Subscribe and keep watching Voicepkdotnet.
आपकी खबर, आपकी आवाज़. Voicepkdotnet.